right, let's see if this is working. Okay, very good evening to everyone. So welcome to the extra tutorial for Chinese equity markets. Now this one was actually not scheduled, as you know. So if people are not able to come, then I don't mind. But I want to thank you for coming, and I will ensure that it will be useful for you, and your time here will not be wasted. I mainly want to take instructions from Paul McGuinness. He asked me to talk about a number of things, and the topics are what you can see here. Just hold on a second. Now, this session actually is being recorded as I speak. I don't always do that, but I think we've all had a pretty heavy day. I have. I've had a heavy week, a heavy life. Okay. So if the material is somewhat complex for tonight, then you have at least the assurance that when you go home, there will be a backup copy that you can refer to. Although you shouldn't always rely on that, because then you are spending a lot of time. But I thank you for being here, and I do appreciate it. I'd like to speak about a number of things, mainly take over privatization, and just from hearing the general discussions, between some of you and Paul, and from what you told me, there can be some confusion on these issues. The worst thing in the world, I think, is that when you are confused and you don't even know you are confused, or you thought you understood, but actually when you hear it from someone explaining in finer detail, you realize, oh, this actually was not my original understanding. So let's try and deal with that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the conditional. Obviously, I need to avoid this spot. Conditional general offer, and what it really means. There's a lot more to it, or behind the idea, maybe than what we have just told you. I'd like to talk a little bit, if we have time, about the philosophies for listing approval for equity. Let's say in the United States versus Hong Kong. And I don't know if we have time for that green shoot, but if not, but at least the notes are there, and I think you know the topic pretty well. So, as you know, so the final exam will be next week. Oh, it's fairly chunky. It's 15%. The exam will be next Saturday. I want to just confirm with Paul just exactly the time he wants to start. He mentioned this afternoon that it might be shortly after 2. Yeah, so there's thank you for that. But I will double confirm and we'll come back to you. But anyway, we should find, if you are there at 2 o'clock, you can't use. Okay? It's YIA, lecture theatre 3. And so this is I didn't come in yet. I've actually added it tonight. So that wasn't there before. I was planning to run 9 tutorials against 10 lectures. Now we are running, normally we run 1 tutorial less than the lectures. 11 lectures, 10 tutorials, and 10 lectures, 9 tutorials. But never mind. So that's what we're doing. So this really will be the last one. That is why I'm inviting everyone to come here. There is normally a second tutorial on a Thursday morning. Some of you are from there. There is no point to ask you to come here on Thursday morning next week. Next week is exam week. I don't want you. So, okay, if you stay home and take it easy and just do some revision. Alright? Now, on this topic, takeover and privatization, I'm trying to come to it from maybe a slightly different angle. The intention is to try to help you understand, hopefully, a bit more easily. Okay? And these are actually quite different. They are different events. Okay, to start with, okay, get that in your mind. We're not talking the same thing here. All right, takeover and privatization. Now, takeover is just the actual process when someone with a lot of money approaches a company to go from zero to hero, okay, so to speak. So they buy up, they accumulate shares from you got to start from zero. Okay? So you accumulate shares from nothing up to a point where the law actually compels you to take certain action in terms of the general offer, and you may end up buying a pretty big chunk of the company. And the most extreme, obviously, would be 100%. Okay? So there are, I guess, different types of shareholders. So there's what I call the normal guy, you and me. Okay? You own one lot, maybe, or just a small amount. There is the substantial shareholder. Okay. There is the controlling shareholder. Okay. And then there is the majority shareholder, and then the last one I call the private. That's when you actually take a company private. Okay. Now, please understand that if you are in different jurisdictions, these may be known under different names or different labels. Okay, so do not think that these terms are applied everywhere in the world. It's the concepts that I want you to appreciate rather than the actual names themselves. So a controlling shareholder in Hong Kong may be called something different in the UK or in the US, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so I am really discussing things here more in the local, in the Hong Kong context. And privatization, however, okay, is when somebody has bought up a company and they have bought so much that they actually have the right to apply to the regulator and take it private. Okay? You take the company private. It's not in the stock market anymore. You can't trade. And the stocks don't trade. The equity, strictly speaking, becomes private equity. Okay? You don't have any of those listing requirements or disclosure, regular duties. So that also you cannot access the general public or funds anymore. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah? So please understand, first of all, we are talking a different concept. Okay, takeover. Sometimes we'll end up as privatization, but it is not necessarily the case. Okay, I think that's one way of putting it. So I want to put the clock somewhere so I know my time. So here I'm saying, so so takeover sometimes can lead to a privatized company, although you must have realized by now that when you have a takeover, the end result actually is not certain. And We'll talk a bit more in the next few slides. Okay? The intention of takeover is to gain control. It doesn't always mean that you need to take the company private. All right? But it can happen. All right? So that is okay. Yeah. So do not confuse the two, please. Okay? Now what I have here is a second. Why is my pointer not working? Okay, so now I've come up with this idea, what I call shareholder migration zones. You won't find this in any textbook because I came up with this idea. So hopefully it's going to help you. Right? Now, what do I mean by that? I'm writing them all up. A, B, C, D, E, F. So you can be a normal shareholder, like I said. You can be a substantial shareholder. You can be a controlling shareholder, a majority shareholder. E and F I'll explain in just a moment. Okay? And these are the corresponding percentages. And these are according to Hong Kong law. Okay? Like I said, don't worry too much about the numbers or even the labels. Okay? It's really the concepts that are relevant. And so anyone who owns less than 5%, which can be you or me, okay, it's just an ordinary guy. Now, more than 5%, already they call that substantial, but you could go all the way up to 29.9. Okay? Anything beyond 30, they call you a controlling shareholder. All this is actually in the notes. I'm just reinterpreting it. All right? Hopefully in a way that's easy to understand. Majority is obvious. That's when you own more than 50%. And when you get up to 75%, if for any reason you are the owner, and you yourself, you own 77%, then there's one of two things you can do. So either you sell back that 2% to the market, okay, or you have to think of delisting it. You can't. Your company is not listed. Your company is not allowed to trade unless you get some kind of waiver. Okay. Now, if you go even beyond that, 90%, then you can potentially take the company private. This is 90%. Please remember, not of all the available shares, but it's just 90% of what you don't control. Okay, so I don't know how else to put that here. So if you already control, let's say 70%, if you control 70%, so there is another 30% out there. The moment you acquire 27 of that 30, okay, then you can already take the company private. Okay, so it's 90% of shares that you do not own. But anyway, that's also in Paul's notes. Is everyone okay with that? Now, the next thing is I'm trying to show you what happens when you go from A to B. I'm talking about buying stocks, okay? So you buy stocks, then you go from A to B, or from one point of B. Now I'm talking about buying, always talking about accumulation, buying stocks. If you go from B to B, so let's say you go from 7% to 10%, what happens to you? Well, nothing. Things start to get interesting when you go from B. So let's say you are 27, going to 33. So you've gone from B, from zone B to zone C, okay? Then you will, just by Rule 26 of the Hong Kong SFC takeover code, you would have triggered a mandatory conditional general offer. Now, I'm going to explain what that is in just a moment. There are 4 words here, okay? Mandatory, conditional, general offer. I'm going to explain all of them, okay? Although they are just English words, there's more subtlety than you think, all right? And then you go down the list. If you go from C to C, so that's less than 2%. So let's say you go from 31 to 32, or 48 to 49, right? What will happen to you? Nothing, okay? By the way, if you want to take photos, it's good, but these slides are online already. Feel free to download. Now, if you go from C to C, but it's more than 2%, so you go from 32 to, I don't know, 36 and a half, right? Then you trigger the takeover code by this thing called the creeper rule. The creeper rule is what? Every single, within any program period, it's a rolling period, it's not the calendar year. Okay? You are not allowed to buy more than 2%. Well, you are allowed, but if you do that, then you trigger the takeover code, and there will be a mandatory conditional general offer because of you. All right. I'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment. And then when you go from C to D, again, that triggers the takeover rule. The takeover code. If we go from 49, let's say from 49 to 51, okay, that would be triggered by the creeper rule. Or maybe you go from 45 to 55, okay, that is not even the creeper rule. It's just the takeover code. Because we bought 10%. Now that would be what we call a mandatory unconditional general offer. Is that right? Okay so far? Yeah. I hope this is helpful. Right? It's not my intention to confuse you any more than you already are. All right. So, what more can we say about this? Well, you can go further, okay? So I am saying here that if you go from C to E, which is quite extreme, okay? So let's say you go from 45 to 77, okay? Now, if you go from C to E, actually the result is quite similar to if you go from C to D. The only difference is now, because you have bought so much, you're going to need to sell some of it back, because the rule is that you need to have a minimum 25% available stocks in the public float, okay? And also it would trigger a mandatory unconditional general offer, okay? And if you go from D, now if you are already in D, so you are already a majority shareholder, okay? And you go from D to E, then I guess the only result is you're going to get the regulator knocking on your door, telling you, hey, look, your available public float is now less than 25%, okay? But other than that, nothing else happens, okay? If you go from C or D, okay, to F, which is you are in a zone where potentially you are in a position to take a company private, all right? Now we talk about privatization, okay? So again, I want to just repeat the point I made earlier. If you were here, let's just say, if you are currently 60%, so there's 40% out there belonging to somebody else, okay? And if you want to take a company private, there are two ways to do it. The first way is if you make a general offer and you buy so much stocks that there's only 4% remaining or less, okay, then you can apply to, you can call it a cleanup purchase if you like. So the rest of these shareholders would have to sell to you, okay? So when I'm saying 90%, I'm talking about 90% of what we call disinterested shares, okay? Now, the other way to take a company private, of course, is precisely as Paul described to you, via a scheme of arrangement. Okay, I'm not going to repeat that here because he talked about that so much. So if you really still don't understand, all right, you just send me an email and I will do my best to answer your question. But I don't want to waste your time anymore by talking about because it's fairly self-contained. So there are two ways basically to take a company private, right? So either you buy so much shares, okay, with your general offer, that the remaining shareholders actually is very, very small. It's a tiny amount, tiny amount of the original disinterested portion. That's one way, okay? The other way is when you hold one of those meetings called scheme of arrangement, and then you have, sometimes what they call proxy fight. So you're trying to line up support for what you want to get through, and then people are going to vote on it, and you have to get 75% of the votes who turn up to the meeting, okay, number one, okay, and whoever is opposing, never mind how many people are opposing in the meeting, but the number of votes opposing has to be less than 10% of all the disinterested shares. Okay, sorry, it's a bit complex, but I didn't make the rules. That's the way they are. All right. So I'm just going to skip over that part because it's all in the notes. Now, is everyone still okay so far? It's all right? I hope this makes it clearer. Are there any questions from anyone? Yes, Alfred.
What is the difference? What is the difference between the two? Okay. Okay, let me start with the so-called scheme of arrangement. Now, do you know what, I take it you do know what that is. Okay? It is just, a company that you need to call a meeting, and if somebody owns 60%, the scheme of arrangement, the intention is very clear. The intention is to take a company private. Okay. So that's why we call the shareholders together. And if there are 40%, and not everyone will come. Okay. So if I own 60% and there are 40% of votes out there, most of the time you don't get what the complete turnout of that 40%. So whoever comes, all right, we just have a vote, and it has to be a 75% majority, okay, of the people who are there, okay? And then people who vote against that, of all the people, less than 10% of all the what they call the disinterested parties. Okay. Now, without bothering too much about the numbers, okay, so the scheme of arrangement is specifically designed for is a kind of one-off event for shareholders to get together to decide whether they want to take the company private or not. Private. Private means it won't be listed anymore. It won't be in a stock exchange. It won't be available for you and me to invest in. That's private. Okay. With the takeover, it's a little bit different. All right. Now, because the so-called general offer that you are asked to make can start as early as, if you go from 29.5 to 32, let's say, okay, you are nowhere near complete ownership. You're not even halfway, right? So the takeover code is there to serve a different purpose, okay? And if a privatization happens because of a takeover attempt, okay, I tend to think that is, I don't want to call it an accident, but it was probably not the prime purpose to start with. Okay? I don't have to take the company private in order to have control over it. Okay? If I have 32%, already they call me the controlling shareholder. If I have 51, you certainly will be the controller, because that you are the majority shareholder. Okay. Now, if you are 51, okay, if you are 51, you control the company. You are the majority shareholder, but that does not give you the right to turn it private until you get pretty close to, the 95 level. It depends on the shareholder structure. You see the difference? Yeah. You take over a company, it's a public company, and you keep running it. You keep running it. As a public company. Okay? So you can install your own CEO and you can maybe influence the board and so on. But it is still a public company. So if when you are doing a takeover, and you manage to buy so much that you have the right to turn it private, okay? I would say that is, well, how can I put it? A kind of secondary outcome. Let me give you a scenario, right? Scenario is this. So, you currently own 29%. And you bought 3%. So that takes you up to 33. Okay? So you are nowhere near being a complete owner. Right? And maybe that wasn't even what was on your mind. Okay? But you realize, whoops, I bought 3%, so now I'm 33. Okay? So you trigger off a conditional general offer. Now, how much is out there? 67%. Right? Now, a conditional general offer means you have to promise to buy from everyone if they want to sell it to you. You can't say, oh, I'm sorry, I run out of money or I changed my mind. You can't do that. Okay? They can sue you for it. So there's 67% out there, and let's just say they all sell it to you, all of them. Okay? Then I think in that case you have simultaneously achieved two objectives. Number one, you have taken over the company. Yes, you have. Okay. Number two, you are now actually in a position to take it private because you borrow the shares. Yeah. But you can actually just have number one without number two. So what if out of that 67%, 30 will sell to you. Okay, so you go from 29 to 33 to 63. It's good enough, right? But you won't be able to take the company private. You see the difference? Which is why, as Paul was saying, you might recall, if you really are serious about taking the company private, you probably wouldn't do it by the takeover avenue. You would just use the scheme of arrangement. So if you go by the takeover avenue, it's because you want to take over a company. Which is why I said they are different things. Are you with me?
So let's say you hold on shares, trigger voluntary general it's a one good way to perform the
Yes, because, okay, he's asking, I don't know if you heard of this now, he's asking if you already own 75%, now that's a different situation. If you already own 75%, okay, so you are practically, you are the majority, you are still a majority shareholder, okay, and you wish to take the company private. Now, in that case, that is a voluntary arrangement. In fact, if you already own 75%, pretty much whatever you do, it will not be subject to any of these, general offer regulatory requirements. You can buy 2%, 3%, 10%, you can. And I think Paul has picked an excellent case. Who was it from Untitled? Yeah, that's a very interesting case because it is precisely what you are talking about. In that case, they already owned a majority. So the company, there was already a majority shareholder in there. So when you are a majority shareholder and you declare that we have an interest to take the company private, okay? And we are happy to buy all your shares, but we will only buy it if this privatization is successful. That's what they said. Now, why is it they can do that? It is because they were already a majority shareholder. So it's actually a voluntary offer. It's a voluntary commercial proposal, if you like. And anyone in the commercial world is free to make voluntary commercial offers or commercial proposals, as long as they are not breaking the law or there are no legal requirements. Okay. If you own, let's say you own 45% each instead of 75, okay? Or even 60. Okay? If you own less than 50%, let's say you own 45. You own 45, and you start buying, and you tell everyone, you tell the remaining 55% of the people, by the way, I am interested to take this company private, okay? That is why I'm really squeezing it up. You cannot say that, if the privatization fails, then I'm not going to buy your share. You can't do that. Because if you buy shares and you go from 45 to 55, let's say, then that general offer actually becomes unconditional, which is to say it will be successful, and whoever sells you the shares, you have to buy them. That is the key difference. Now, if you are still, you haven't digested it completely, which is possible, There's a video running. Go home and I tried to talk slowly. But I know this is a complex issue. Is everyone, are you okay after? Sure. Yes. Yeah. The previous page. Yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah, as I said, no. If you go from C to D, there are two possibilities. Okay, let's say you go from if you go from 49 to 51, okay, that would be the Creeper rule. But if you go from 49 to 55, okay, you still trigger the mandatory unconditional general offer, but it's not a Creeper rule anymore. It's just you bought too much. You got me there. It's actually in the rule. I know what you're saying. I think you're okay. I think if you really went from 49 to 50 and a half, because the Creeper rule just says if you are between 30 and 50, every year you can only buy less than 2. So from 49 to 50 and a half, well, congratulations, you just become a majority shareholder. Yeah. If you went from 45 to 50 and a half, that's different. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Just like condition of 90% is just self-decided or 100% in practice. But we can decide it maybe 95% or 85%.
Not calculate. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. No, they can't change the rules like that. Do you understand the question? You know what she just asked? Yeah, it's a fixed condition. It's a fixed requirement because that is the law. Although you can make that fulfillment a condition on your contract, but the fulfillment itself does not change. I think I understand the question. Now I understood. Before I thought I understood. Yeah. Can you repeat? I think she's asking because okay, if you don't understand the question she asked, which is a good one, because I spent so much time saying to you that in the case of Namtai, because they were already a majority shareholder, and they made a voluntary offer to privatize the company, and the offer is conditioned upon the privatization being successful. And when does it become successful? It becomes successful when the people who are opposing it is less than 10% of all the disinterested shares. So her question was, can you change that 10%, make it 5% or something? And I was saying, no, I think that is a legal requirement. So you can make a contract, but you make a contract such that, oh, I only buy your shares if the privatization is successful. You can do that, but the success of the privatization would still depend on the same legal requirement. That's an excellent point. You understand what she's saying? Yeah? So she's really thinking it through one step further. Yes?
In is the one who wants to buy the company able to customize its offer by what he needs? For example, whatever the position he's in, like he can make the offer conditional or unconditional, whatever. So he can customize the offer, whatever he needs.
These are very tricky questions.
I say mandatory, if you are going to propose a mandatory or general privately.
Yeah.
Even if I own shares in the company, I also can issue a voluntary offer.
No. If you own 0 shares, what do you mean if you own 0 shares?
Currently I'm not a shareholder of the company, but I want to buy it, so can I, at this position, issue a voluntary offer?
No. Okay, I think I get your question. Now, if you are a majority shareholder, in fact, when you get to 75%, I would even call it a super majority shareholder. But in any case, if you are somewhere around 65 or 70, okay, please don't forget, you have to get there. You get to 70. I'm talking about 70%. Okay, you get to 70% from 0, right? So at some point in time, so either you are already the owner when it started, like Jack Ma or Mark Zuckerberg. If you're not, if you slowly acquire the company, you must have started from 0 at some point in time, all right? And you must have crossed the 30% point at some point in time. Okay? So now you are at 65, let's say. So you have already met that challenge previously when you try to buy lots and lots of shares of a particular company, and then you trigger off the takeover code. So no, you can only make that kind of voluntary offer if you are a majority shareholder. Now, if you own 0, if you own nothing,
Maybe something less than 30% or.
yeah. If you own less than 30%, okay, let's talk through. Let's break it down to earth. If you own less than 30%, then okay, please. I just remember the one thing that is special about the non-tie case is that they offer to buy shares as an attempt to privatize, and they said that we will not buy shares unless the privatization was successful. Now, you can do that if you are a majority shareholder because it's voluntary. Okay? Now, if you own, let's say you own 28%, and you now go to everyone in the world and you say, I will I voluntarily offer to buy your shares, okay? Then you follow the law. You follow the law, it means if you are 28 and you say, come on, I got lots of money, I'm going to buy from everyone. And if you go from 28 to, let's say, 51, okay, you have to buy. You have to buy the shares. you cannot make that. You cannot say, oh, you know, if I for example, you cannot say I found a 28, and unless I get to 65 or more, I don't do this. No, you can't do that. You can't do that because then everyone will do it. You can't say, oh, I'm not 28 unless I get to 70, no deals. Okay? Because then if it was me, I would do the same thing. Okay? That doesn't apply. That's a good question. Yeah. Because the rule has not given you that kind of allowance. Okay? Thank you for that question. Does everyone understand that? Yes. Sure. Lovely.
It's about if I have triggered the change of controller, I have like 33%, and I have made a conditional offer to all the 67 shares outstanding. But I don't have the intention to privatization. However, the acceptance was very high and reached the requirement.
Let's say you want to buy today, for
Yeah,
example.
I want to privatization. But do I have to privatization, or I have the choice to like decrease my shares up to less than 75%?
You have a choice. You have a choice.
So I don't have to privatize.
No, you don't. But you know what? You are kind of in limbo. I don't know if you understand what that word means. L-I-M-B-O. Limbo is somewhere between heaven and hell, I think. Okay. Right? Limbo, okay. I didn't know that. Is it a good name? Is it from China? It's called limbo. Right. Limbo is, I just call it up random. Limbo, I think, is a word that describes when you are kind of stuck between two places and you are in the middle of nowhere. And I say that because, let's say you are now at 96%, okay, and you have not privatized yet, okay, but your float is very small, so you cannot trade on the exchange, okay, so they will ask you to delist, so you got to do something, one or the other, but you have a choice. Either you sell some stock back to the market, or you take it private. But the point being, you can't just leave it there like that. You got to do something. Are you with me? Well, there are lots of questions tonight. I wish you all this one. And so where were we? I think we covered this. Okay, now I want to tell you a bit more about conditional general offer, because we keep telling you, oh, you know, when you trigger the takeover code, then you trigger off then you have to make a general offer, conditional general offer. Have you ever wondered why? Why?
Because we can see that when you have a multiple from one shareholder to the controlling shareholder and the majority shareholder, you can see that Hong Kong EX takes a lot of role. This is made by the general offer rule. So actually, it's not that easy for anyone to control a company. High possibility it will hurt the majority shareholder interest. I think this is the intention from the Hong Kong EX. And you can see that if scheme of arrangement is quite fair actually to anyone. If you want to do, actually Hong Kong EX allow you to do. He will not set a lot of obstacle to keep it back. I think we should still at the Hong Kong side to see why they will have a lot of traditional general offer. That's to make you not that easy.
That is besides the reason. I was wondering how much you understand. Okay, I mean, apart from just knowing the rules, it's important to take a step back. Why are these rules there? And I would say it's mainly to protect the minority shareholders, the disinterested parties, and also to maintain, I think, some kind of order in the market. Now, first of all, I want to just explain to you what an offer is. Maybe you haven't thought about this. Okay, no problem. I'll get at least one view on YouTube. It's okay. Just keep taking one. Maybe you haven't thought about this, and I read law in YouTube also. Before I did that, I also never thought about the concept of an offer. So now I'm going to share with you. Now, in contract law, the word offer actually has a special meaning, and it is a legal act when one party, the offerer, makes a proposal to the other party, the offeree, or the accepting party. Okay? So the offerer will say to the offeree, okay, how about I give you this, you give me that, whatever this and that might be. And it is called consideration. That's where that word came from. Okay? So I'll give you this, okay? And the consideration will be that. Thank you very much. I don't know what it is. Okay. That's what. So that the word consideration in that context has nothing to do with, well, not nothing, but it's different from the normal word consideration that you know. Okay. And offer and acceptance, they go hand in hand. And we are always talking about exchange of something for something. And when you make an offer to somebody, unless you withdraw it, if the offeree accepts, then you must honor it. It's like if you interview with a company for a job, right? They give you a job offer, and they give you, let's say, 2 weeks to consider, okay? So hopefully they don't withdraw it, normally they won't, okay? But let's say they don't withdraw the offer. The moment you pick up the phone and say, yes, I accept, they have to honor it, okay? They can't say, oh, I'm sorry, we changed our mind, okay? Can't do that, okay? That's contract law. Now, this is the reason why a general offer is actually, a very powerful tool against what I call counter. Counter means just someone not serious, okay? like a joker, or irrational takeover actions. You have to understand that stock prices can be very sensitive to takeover rumors. Okay? So if we don't have this in place, I can guarantee you that every other day, someone with money to throw around will look at the companies and want to take it from 29 to 31, okay? And then they someone wants to plan a takeover. And then the share price will just go boom like this to the ceiling. And if you don't have this condition, then they will just sell it and make money. You can basically do that every day. Okay? That is the reason we have the takeover code. Okay? So if you buy from 29% to 31, okay, you better make sure you have enough money to buy the other 69%. because we're going to make you buy that if people want to sell to you. You get what I'm saying? Okay? So that is the reason. Now, so that's an offer. So I just come to the offer part. Okay? So what is a general offer? Well, a general offer is that it's something you make to everyone who can sell to you. Okay? So apart from the shares you own, pretty much everybody else can sell to you if they want to. So like I said, you better make sure in your bank account you have a lot of money lying around. Otherwise, you breach your contract terms. Okay? And people can knock on the door and say, hey, I want to sell you my shares. Please take them. And you cannot say no. Now, so what is a conditional general offer? Well, this is, so when the takeover code is triggered from B into C, I don't have the numbers here for some reason. So C, from B to C, when you cross through the 30%, okay? So the purchasing investor makes a general offer, okay? Now, so you've gone from, let's say you were, so this is a 30 point, okay? And you've gone from here to here. So now, let's say before you were 29, and now you are 32. So definitely you have to make a general offer, but it's a conditional general offer. Now, what does that mean? That means you're going to say to the other 68%, okay, I will buy your shares, but guess what? If the number of people who will sell to you only takes you up to here, this is 50%. So let's say they take you to 46. Then, no, you don't have to buy, okay? That is what conditional means. You do not have to buy, all right? However, if you go from 29 to 32, and you say to the other 68%, okay, I will buy your shares, and a lot of people sell to you, and that takes you to here, all right? Then it becomes what we call unconditional. So there are no more conditions. So this trade will go through, and everyone who sells to you, you have to buy from them. Okay, so that is the difference. Okay, so whether the offer, even if someone actually accepts that, okay, is eventually executed, is conditional upon how much shares you manage to accumulate. All right. So, like I said earlier, so a conditional general offer, which is when you are less than 50%, or when you first started, it becomes unconditional the moment so many people sell to you that you end up becoming a majority shareholder. You cross this line, okay? So I guess these numbers, I think, if you need to think of this clearly, these numbers, they all have meaning. 5, 30, 50, 75, 90, but this is 90% of the disinterested parties, okay? Please remember that. This is in the privatization context. Otherwise, it's not 90% of everyone. Okay, what else? So that's a general offer, and this is a conditional general offer, and this is how it becomes unconditional, okay, is when you buy more than, manage to get up to the, or beyond the 50% level, all right?
This means that you must make the offer when you cross over either when you cross over the 30% point, or that's from B to C, or when you go from C, somewhere in C, to another place in C, but you buy more than 2%. So you make the offer. That part is what we call mandatory. You must do it, even if it may not end up getting done. Okay? Now, what's the next slide? Okay, now, yeah, what's all the fuss? So I think we have already addressed this question earlier. The purpose is that stock prices are very sensitive to any kind of, takeover rumors, and they can be volatile. And the takeover code is really there to make sure that things are orderly, and also minority, and I put that in brackets, it's not just minority, but everybody. So you need to be protected against wanton. This is not the wonton noodle, not that wonton, okay? The word wanton has a meaning. Do you know what wonton means? Wonton noodles. No, wonton is an English word. I'll show you what it means. Wanton, deliberate and unprovoked. Okay, I wasn't thinking of the second one. Deliberate, willful, malicious, how to say, okay? Or spiteful. Okay, that's what wanton means. Someone who is not actually friendly or don't actually have your interest in their mind. That's wanton, right? Okay. So the framework, I guess, is there just to make sure that if you are serious about, or don't go into this takeover business unless you are serious. That's what it says in the end, okay? Unless you are really committed, you are really interested, and you have deep pockets. When we say you have deep pockets, it means you have a lot of cash in the bank to spend, okay? Because you make a general offer, and if it becomes successful, and people knock on your door and says, I want to sell, well, you have to buy, okay? They can chase you for it. And if you don't have the money, you can go bankrupt, all right? And what I'm saying here is, it is hard to go from substantial. So substantial is 5 to 30, and controlling is 30 to 50. It is quite hard to go from substantial to a controlling, because when you cross over the 30% point, you must, at least for one time in your life, you must have triggered the takeover code, okay? If you are not the founder and you came in from the cold, you must have crossed that 30% point at some point, at least once, okay? And also, if you are 30 to 50 and you want to go beyond 50, that also would trigger off the takeover code. But once you are past 50, okay, a lot of the constraints actually do not apply to you anymore. That's another way to think of it. So again, so you guys were already picking up on what I was thinking because the Namtai deal was a good example. Okay, so I think you guys are on the right track. Okay. All right. So I hope this actually clarifies things somewhat. I think the material is dense and it is complicated. It is interesting. So I just try to reduce, a lot of material into some sort of order. Okay. Now for today, so what have we done? So I told you a bit about housekeeping. You didn't send any questions, but you did ask quite a few. I thank you for that. I thank you for all the questions, particularly since it is recorded. So we get to share it. Okay, I am really so grateful. We talked about takeover and privatization. They are different concepts. Please remember. Okay, if you want to take over a company, it does not mean you want to privatize it. But if you come in and you want to privatize a company, then I guess yes, you are taking over and you are privatizing. Okay. And we talked about a conditional, general offer. What is an offer? What is a general offer? What is a conditional general offer? Okay. And we talked about this. We haven't talked about. I'll tell you in a minute. The philosophies of listing approval. Now, and green shoe, these notes are actually in the tutorial file of last week. I think there's nothing more I wanted to, yeah, so let me show you that. I think the green shoe, I really put it there for your own intellectual interest, but you probably, it will make you think. It will make you think a bit more about the whole green shoe thing, but you probably don't need to know or to go that far just for the scope of this course. Now, this is these are the slides for last week. And I know that last week we mostly were just doing the presentations, and I thank you. I really enjoyed all your talks. I probably want to just finish off here by telling you a little bit about not this, what I call the comparative philosophies of listing a company in the United States versus listing a company, let's say, in Hong Kong. Okay, and I think this is relevant for you. So in the future, some of you will become investors, or some of you will become salespersons or analysts, or even maybe regulators. Okay, so this is certainly something which I think is good to know. And now, it's actually very brief. I just want to introduce you to the idea. There are, roughly speaking, there are two sort of philosophies to listing approval, okay? And these are, one is called merit-based, okay? And the other one is what's called disclosure-based. Okay, these are the two main frameworks. Now, what do they actually mean? Hong Kong is an example of merit-based, and the best example of disclosure-based is the United States, certainly. Okay. And there is a global trend, or at least to some degree it's been talked about for a long time, there is a trend to move towards disclosure-based, which Hong Kong is not currently, okay? And I think indirectly, that may even be the reason that Hong Kong lost the Alibaba IPO to New York. And now to understand this a bit more, let me introduce you to I don't know if I put this document in Blackboard, but I'm happy to. This is really just for your general interest, but I think it's good for you to know. Okay, now I have a document here which discuss the two philosophies, and let me just draw your attention to this, and forgive me for just reading it out because I normally don't like to do that, but this might be the best way. Now look at the paragraph in the middle, the highlighted one. So one philosophy can be called merit-based, okay? Now in the merit-based framework, the regulator would try to protect the investor from abuse and to make sure that the securities are offered to them at a fair price by intervening substantively. Now, the key word, I guess, is substantively, okay, in the offering process. The public offering cannot proceed until the securities have been approved by the authority. And before the approval is given, the authority will review the terms, including the business proposal and the offer price. Okay, now that's merit-based. Merit-based. Now Hong Kong does that. Now what does it mean?
That means if you come to Hong Kong and you say to the SFC, okay, I would like to apply for listing here, you have my stocks tradable in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, then they would look at your company and they would evaluate your proposal, okay? And they will ask a lot of questions, and they will say, okay, you can do this, you can't do that, or you need so many years of profit, you need size and this and that. So they have a lot of requirements, okay, which are there because they see themselves as a sort of initial filter for whether your company is good or is sound or not. Okay? And if they think your company is not really a good one or not worthy of listing, they will not approve. Now that's merit-based. What is disclosure-based? Disclosure-based is this. Disclosure-based is the regulator will ask for a lot of information, probably a lot more than required by Hong Kong. Okay? And they would ask you to tell investors everything. Okay? Now that can be a substantial amount of info. So the disclosure requirement is a lot harder. They ask for a lot of things, but it is then up to the investor to decide whether it's a good deal or not. So I ask you to give me A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and if you've done all that, okay, give it to the investor, let them decide. And the regulator will intervene a lot less. Whereas in Hong Kong, they might say, I think your company, yeah, well, you could do this and you're not doing that, or I think, your business is not sound and so on. They would have more interest or focus on the quality of your business, whereas in the US, they would have much less than that. So more intervention, less disclosure, or relatively less, okay? Whereas US is more disclosure and less intervention. You see the difference? For example, I think, okay, and if you can find out in some way that I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. I think the reason they allow shares of multiple classes in the United States, where some don't even have voting rights. The reason they allow that is they tell investors, so investors know, they know, okay? So the regulators are thinking, well, as long as they know, it's okay. So if they don't like it, don't buy it. Okay? I think that's the logic. But in Hong Kong, we don't have that, right? In Hong Kong, it's one share, one vote. So I think intrinsically, in Hong Kong, the intuition is that, well, we shouldn't really, let the shareholders be divided into different classes. I think they do say that idea as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas in the US, they think, oh, well, as long as we have them, it's really up to them. Let them do it. They buy it, they want it. They don't like it, they don't like it. But in Hong Kong, we don't even have that idea. You catch what I'm saying? Between disclosure-based and merit-based. It's not really easy to explain, and it's not the best way to communicate that. But if you are interested, allow me to upload this perhaps to Blackboard, and you can read it. Not in the coming week, but any other time you can come back. Now, what are some of the arguments against it? Okay. So merit regulation, okay, I'll just read some more. Merit regulation, merit-based has been defined as a system that authorizes the regulator to deny registration to a security offering unless the substantive terms of the offering and the transaction ensure a fair relation between promoters and public investors. Okay, so and provide public investors with a reasonable relation of risk to return. Now, in the US, you would never find regulators saying something like that, I don't think. Okay, so here the regulator is trying to ensure that investors are getting a fair deal. So the counter argument is, how do you even know? How do regulators know? Why are they good judges? Which is exactly what they say here, okay? Now, so simply stated, merit regulation unnecessarily constrains the freedom of people to do business as they want, discourages entrepreneurial initiative, and impedes the flow of capital to its most efficient use. I don't know where this came from. It sounds very American, to be honest, okay? But anyway, that's what they, okay, who said that? There's a little footnote number 3. Who said that? Oh, Campbell. Who's Campbell? I don't know who Campbell is. May well be, it just sounds, it's free market capitalism. Just let them do what they want. So disclosure-based takes a diametrically, so completely opposite approach. So under disclosure-based, the issuer is required to make full disclosure of its affairs to investors. It is then up to the investor. So the emphasis here is full disclosure. So you probably will tell them a lot more. I don't mean that with merit-based you tell investors nothing. Of course not. You still tell them a lot, but here you tell them even more. Okay? The regulator no longer intervenes paternally. It means like a father. That's what paternal means. Okay? So you don't intervene in the issuer-investor relationship, but concerns yourself with the design and enforcement of a framework that would let the two parties
that is the investor and the issuer, that will let the parties negotiate fairly with one another, okay? A disclosure-based regime will require extensive disclosure by the issuer, but it will not concern itself with the substance of these disclosures, okay? So they don't even look at what's in it. They just want you to give some information, okay? And if a company is making very, very poor profits or earnings, so that would be a shortcoming, okay? If it is actually disclosed, okay, it does not actually present a barrier to the public offering. Now, this is certainly something that Hong Kong will not do, the way things are right now, okay? It is up to the investing public to make its own decision. And I highlighted some more, okay? So you could argue, you could challenge the disclosure-based approach. So how can you be sure that the disclosures are fair? First of all, are they even real? And as far as investors are concerned, the issuer is actually far more powerful than the investor. And so how do you know that the negotiations will be fair? And what if the issuer does not actually make proper disclosures? Okay. And then to answer this, they talked about the US experience. So they've had disclosure-based approval for almost 100 years now. So they've always been like that. So before 1930s, that's a long time ago, there was a time when they were merit-based. So for a long time, so essentially, the US is a disclosure-based environment. Okay. So if you are interested, feel free to read this. One day it could come up in an interview and you can start talking about it. And I think, it's true. Well, it's not a problem for you. We have alumni who are working for regulators. Do you know that? Not regulators. The Hong Kong Exchange. Did you know that? Do you know who it is? Would you like to know? She's really enjoying her time there. So one day, so the Hong Kong Exchange is frequently hiring people, especially people of your profile and caliber. You certainly need to know stuff like that. If you can sit down and talk for 3 minutes, which is even harder than talking for 30 minutes because you have to be brief, precise. If you know something about this topic, I think it will be helpful for you. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful. And this really brings our tutorial cycle to a conclusion. So today is the last one. So next week is the exam week. I think the way Paul is doing things, actually it is a little bit unusual. And what I mean by that is he's going to have an exam for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then he's going to sit down and teach you some more.
That tells me that he is actually quite keen to share with you all the other information that you think you should know. Okay? So he's just trying to give you valuable money. So it's not just about the exams, but part of it is. Okay? So look on that in a positive way. He just wants, well, tell you what, I was just thinking, he doesn't have to do that, but he's doing it. Okay? So give me some credit for that.
All right, so thank you for coming. I'm going to let you go. So
a version of this will be available in my YouTube channel. Maybe sometime tomorrow, when I find together on this. So, it's funny the way it sounds. You do know I have a YouTube. You didn't know? I have a YouTube channel. It's got a lot of good stuff in there. Even tutorials from other courses you haven't taken. The channel is called.
I will show you. So this is real time. The channel is called hello. Good evening. Oh, now I can't find it. It's called channel number F. Sam's channel number F. I know F is not a number, but who cares? So if you go to YouTube and you type Sam's channel number F and you click on that, you'd find a lot of things that I have produced over the years, including capital market Q&A, January 25th of this year, derivative trading, and other stuff. Okay, so I will put this up there, and maybe I will send a link to the WeChat, either WeChat or by email or maybe both. Okay? All right, have a nice evening, and thank you again for coming. I do appreciate it. Okay, thank you, everybody.